Hello and good afternoon, everybody. I welcome you one and all for this today's lecture, that is analytical epidemiology. And if you remember, we had discussed about the different types of epidemiological studies in the previous lecture class, wherein I told you that epidemiological study designs or studies are divided into observational and experimental studies, and observational studies are again divided into descriptive and analytical epidemiological study designs. In this analytical epidemiological study designs, we basically have four types, that is ecological or correlational studies, followed by cross-sectional or prevalence studies, followed by case control studies and cohort studies. Today we are going to discuss primarily the case control studies of the two case control and cohort studies. We are going to concentrate on case control studies. So as we understand that analytical studies are the second major type of epidemiological studies, and here, unlike in descriptive epidemiology, the subject of interest, where the subject of interest is the population, here the subject of interest is the individual within the population. Though ultimately the derivations from the study are applied to the entire population. The objective in this particular case control study is not to formulate but to test the hypothesis. In previous lecture class, we have understood in descriptive epidemiology that what we do at the end of the descriptive epidemiology is to formulate a hypothesis where we try to incorporate the various elements of a hypothesis which I have explained you in the previous lecture class. So as I said, we primarily concentrate on two types of analytical epidemiological study designs, that is case control study and cohort study. From each of the study designs, one can determine whether a statistical association exists between a disease and a suspected factor, and if one exists, the strength of the association. So ultimately what we need to see is that whether there is any statistical association between a risk factor and an outcome, and if there is a statistical association, we need to find about how far the risk factor and the outcome are closely associated. What is the strength of the association? So let us understand what would be the schematic diagram of a case control study and a cohort study. If you look at this schematic diagram of a case control study and a cohort study, what we see, the important parameter, that is time. If the direction of inquiry is going from backwards, it is known as a cohort, it is known as a case control study. So what we do in a case control study is, as I said, the direction of inquiry is going backwards, that is a retrospective study. We start with the population which is having cases and controls. Now what are cases? Cases are people, those with the disease. And what are controls? They are similar to cases, but they don't have the disease what the cases have. So in the cases and controls, we tend to find out how many of them are actually exposed to the risk factor, how many of them are not exposed to the risk factor. Now the design of a cohort study is, if you look at the direction of time, the direction of inquiry also goes parallel into future. So that is known as a prospective study or a cohort study. So here what we do is we start with the population, and that is the population those without the disease, and find out how many of them are actually exposed, how many of them are not exposed. Among the exposed are those who are having the disease, how many are developing the disease, and how many are not developing the disease. And among those who are not exposed, among them, how many are developing the disease and how many of them are not developing the disease. So this is the basic design of a case control study and cohort study. So the same thing, it is given more clearly. So cases and controls, we retrospectively go and we find out what is the risk factor responsible for the particular disease. In the same thing, in prospective study or cohort study, we find two groups of populations which are exposed, and we find how many of them are getting to the disease. And since it goes with the passage of time in future, it is known as a prospective study. Now let us understand what is a case control study in detail. Now, as I said, case control studies are called retrospective studies, and they are the first approach to test causal hypothesis. As I said earlier, in descriptive epidemiology, we tend to establish or formulate a hypothesis. And this hypothesis, what we have established in descriptive epidemiology, has to be tested in case of a case control study followed by a cohort study. So, case control studies are also the first approach for an epidemiological investigation also. And this approach has become a permanent method of epidemiological investigation because of its unique design. Now, case control study has three distinct features. As you have noticed that both exposure and the outcome have occurred before the start of the study. Here we are studying the cases who are already having the disease and controls who are not having the disease. So here what happens is both the exposure and the outcome have occurred before the start of the study. The study proceeds backward from effect to cause. So effect is the disease, and we are trying to proceed from disease to the risk factor or the causative agent. We tend to find out which causative agent has caused this particular disease. In a way, we tend to relate with the cause and the effect. Here it uses a control or a comparison group to support or refute an interference. That is the control group. So the three features, unique features of the case control study, which I have tried to explain before. So by definition, a case control study involves two populations. That is, as I said earlier, cases and controls. In case control study, the unit of study is the individual rather than the group, and the focus is on the disease or some other disease problem that has already developed. Now, case control studies are basically comparison studies. They have been used effectively for studies of many cancers and other serious conditions such as cirrhosis of liver, lupus erythematosus, and congestive heart failure. Now, cases and controls, both the cases and controls have to be comparable with respect to certain factors such as age, sex, occupation, and social class or socioeconomic status. Now, let us understand what is the basic design of a case control study, which is better explained in the next slide. Now, if we look into the framework of a case control study and take the example of smoking causing lung cancer of a particular case control study, let us take the example of a case control study that is smoking causes lung cancer. So lung cancer are the cases and controls are those who do not have lung cancer. So it is basically, this table is a 2x2 contingency table, means 2 rows and 2 columns. 2 rows and 2 columns. So the rows are this and columns are this. So we have the cases as A plus C and controls as B plus D. So here we are going to compare the cases and the controls. So here the risk factors, for example, if you are talking about smoking and lung cancer, the risk factor what we are will be discussing is smoking, and the cases will be the cases of lung cancer. Controls will be those without the lung cancers. So here we tend to find out whether there is any association between smoking and lung cancer in this particular table, which we'll discuss exhaustively in the coming slides. Now, these case control studies have the major use in chronic disease problems where the causal pathway may span many decades. So we are going to discuss exhaustively in the subsequent slides what is a case control study. The case control studies have basically 4 steps, and these 4 basic steps are: number 1, selection of cases and controls; second is matching; third is measurement of exposure; and the 4th is analysis and interpretation. So you need to remember these 4 steps because this particular case control study often comes as a university question in the examination. So understanding, remembering and registering these 4 steps is very, very important when you attempt to write this long question in the university examination. So the 4 basic steps are, again, selection of cases and controls, matching, measurement of exposure, analysis, and interpretation. Selection of cases and controls. The first primary thing is selection of a case. So what is a case? So to understand about a case, we need to understand what should be the diagnostic criteria and what should be the eligibility criteria of a case. The diagnostic criteria of a case and the staging of a particular case has to be established before the start of the study. For example, you're talking about carcinoma breast. You need to write about the carcinoma breast and stage. For example, carcinoma breast stage 1. Likewise, if you're discussing about any other cancer, you need to identify a group of cases having same histological characteristics. So the diagnostic criteria, once established before the start of the study, has to be there till the end of the study without any alteration. So the diagnostic criteria has to be established beforehand to say whether whether a particular case fits to the study or not. Likewise, eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria of the case is the cases that have been identified in the passage of time, that is new cases, but not old or prevalent cases. It means that incident cases have to be selected for cases and not prevalent cases which are often chronic or cases which are in the advanced stages of the disease. So diagnostic criteria and eligibility criteria are very important when we select a case from a hospital or anywhere, as we are going to discuss further in this particular slide. Now, what are the sources of cases? The sources of cases can be from the hospital or can be from the general population. So, from the hospital, the cases are selected among those who are admitted to the hospitals, and the cases are such that very often new cases are selected, that is incident cases, and the cases can be a series of cases or a random sample of the cases that are selected from the hospital. And it should be seen that the cases that are selected from the hospital should be representative of the cases that are admitted to the hospital. Likewise, cases from the general population are selected either by a survey or by a disease register or from the network of hospitals, and it can be a series of cases or it can be a random sample of cases which have to be representative of the population or the cases that are selected from the general population. Now, we need to select controls for the cases, and the sources of controls can be from the hospital. So a control can be similar to that of a case, except they shouldn't be having the disease in question or disease which the case has. So in that aspect, a control should be like any other case without the disease which the case is having. So usually controls are selected. For example, if you're talking about carcinoma of breast, we need to select cases, controls of carcinoma of esophagus or GI tract or any other thing. Or it can be also non-cancerous lesions or any other person not having carcinoma of breast. Usually the controls from a hospital are generally cases which are having different diseases. More than one disease are from different diseases. In such a way that selection bias is usually avoided when we select controls from a hospital. Suppose we are talking about, as I said earlier, about carcinoma of breast. So you can select a control having carcinoma of esophagus, or carcinoma of stomach, or carcinoma of the the respiratory tract, or cervical cancer, like that. So the controls can be more than one, or can be having more than one disease, except the disease which the cases are having. Likewise, controls can be from relatives. Relatives can be either their spouses or siblings, but you should remember that siblings cannot be used for the study of genetic diseases in case control study. In neighborhood controls are people usually residing in the same locality, or people attending a particular school or a particular occupation. General population. The controls can be from the general population, and usually they are identified in such a way that they are similar to the cases, and the controls that are identified from the general population should be representative of the general population. it is to be seen that selection bias have to be avoided in such a way that both the controls that are selected should be always be representative of the particular source where they're being taken or used for a case control study. Usually, how many controls are needed? That is a pertinent question many of us would be having. If the case control study is a big one or a large one, and if there are a large number of cases, and if the diagnostic and the cost factors that are required for the selection of controls and cases are one and the same, then for each case, one control is selected. But if the study group or the cases are limited in number, say 50 in number, then the controls have to be selected in the ratio of 2:4:5. So for any case, there can be 2 controls, there can be 4 controls or 5 controls. So likewise, depending upon the number of cases and depending upon the extent of the study, the controls are selected. So we have finished first step, that is selection of cases and controls. Second is matching. As I said earlier, cases should be similar or comparable to controls with respect to certain factors such as age, sex, occupation, or socioeconomic status or social class. So what we need to do is to match cases and controls. So matching. So we need to understand what is meant by matching, or what is the definition of matching. So it is defined as a process by which we select controls in such a way that they are similar to cases with regard to certain pertinent variables, example age, which are known to influence the outcome of the disease, which if not adequately matched for comparability could distort or confound the results. So we need to select cases and controls in such a way that both of them, as we say, for if you take an example of a confounding factor or a factor like age, should be same. For example, if we select 50 years person in a case, then we have to select a 50 years person in case of a control. So we have to match like that. It can be age matching, sex matching, occupation matching, like that. Now we need to understand what are confounding factors, or what is a confounding factor. A confounding factor or a matching factor is defined as one which is both associated with the exposure and the disease and is distributed unequally in study and control groups. So more specifically, a confounding factor is one that, though associated with exposure under investigation, is independently a risk factor for the particular disease. So we'll explain in detail what is a confounding factor. So as I said earlier, confounding factor means it is associated with the exposure, it is associated with the disease. So that factor has to be exactly matched to have a perfect case control study. So we'll explain you further by giving you examples. Now, if you are going to study the role of alcohol in the etiology of esophageal cancer, then smoking is considered as to be a confounding factor. Why smoking is considered as to be a confounding factor? Because smoking is associated, usually smoking is associated with the consumption of alcohol, and smoking is also an independent risk factor as far as the esophageal cancer is concerned. So we need to match in such a way that the effect of smoking is neutralized while we select a case control study. So we will explain you in detail. I'll explain you in detail in the following slide. Now, if you look at this table and see the cases of esophageal cancers, A plus C, and controls of esophageal cancer, B plus D. So the risk factor what we are studying is the role of alcohol in the etiology of esophageal cancer. So what we find is smoking is a confounding factor. So what we need to do is we need to select cases who are having esophageal cancers and those who smoke, and we need to select controls, those who do not have esophageal cancer but who smoke. So smoking in both the cases and controls are neutralized. As a result, we are able to study the role of alcohol in the etiology of esophageal cancer. Hope you understand. So we neutralize the confounding factor, that is smoking, in this particular example, so as to have a perfect match of a case control study in the role of alcohol in the etiology of esophageal cancer. So here smoking is a confounding factor. So if this factor is taken into account while matching adequately in cases and control, see we have taken smokers having esophageal cancers. Here also we are taking controls, smokers not having esophageal cancer. So cases are what I said earlier, cases are those who are having the disease. What is the disease here? Esophageal cancer. Who are controls? People who are not having esophageal cancers, they are the controls, that is B plus D. So as I said, smoking, we need to avoid smoking and we need to neutralize or match smoking. So what we need to do is select cases who are also smokers, select controls who are also smokers. In that way, both the cases and controls are adequately matched and the confounding factor is removed. Now we shall understand another example to further understand what is the role of confounding factor and how the confounding factors are to be utilized to have a perfect case control study. So steroidal contraceptive and breast, in the steroidal contraceptive and breast cancer case control study, what we have is age is again a confounding variable. So age is associated with the steroidal contraceptive. Likewise, age is also associated with breast cancer. So as older people take steroidal contraceptive, we are women who are in the higher age group, if they take steroidal contraceptive, they get breast cancer. Likewise, people or women in the higher age groups or older women, they may have breast cancer. So age has to be neutralized. So what we find over here is women who are having breast cancer and who are older women. Likewise, controls who are those who are not having breast cancer and who are older women. So we have tried to match the confounding factors and neutralize the confounding factors so that the case controls are adequately matched. So in that way, the influence of age is neutralized by studying the role of oral contraceptives in the causation of cancer breast. So higher age is a confounding factor. So if this factor is taken into consideration or into account when matching adequately in cases controls for comparability, this would not confound or distort the results. Now, what are the various types of matching? The matching can be group matching or pair matching. Group matching can be like for variables like age, sex, occupation. So, suppose if in a case we have to search for these three characteristics, age, sex, and occupation, then it is called group matching. So, you need to have also a control which is having the same age, same occupation, and same sex. For example, if you're talking about a 50-year-old male mason, so age is 50 years. So if you're talking about a 50-year age, 50 years old male mason who is having carcinoma of lungs, compared to a control like 50 years old male mason without carcinoma of lungs. So cases are those with having carcinoma of lung, controls are those who are not having carcinoma of lung. So here what we are looking for the variables over here is age, sex, and occupation. Age is 50 years, sex is male, occupation is mason, M-A-S-O-N, mason. That is again people who are involved in construction of houses. So cases and controls, what we have is here a group matching. Likewise, it can be a pair matching. It can be a 50-year mason, 50-year-old mason, or 50-year male. So here we are taking male as well as age. So it is known as pair matching. 50-year-old male having carcinoma of lung. Like we see here, 50 years old male not having carcinoma of lung. It should be noted that if matching is overdone, it may be difficult to find controls. So we should see that the matching should be done in an adequate way and not to overdo it. Further, with excess zeal in matching, there will be a tendency to reduce the odds ratio. So we have studied the second step, that is matching. So first step is selection of cases and controls. Second is matching. Third is measurement of exposure. The measurement of exposure, that is among the cases and controls, should be done by various ways. And it should be uniform for both cases and controls. So usually the measurement of exposure is done by interviewing the cases and controls or administering questionnaire in case of cases and controls, or studying the past record of cases like hospital records, employment records. In that way, we are going to estimate the amount of exposure that has occurred in a case and also in a control. Question of bias or systematic error must be ruled out, which we are going to discuss what is a bias and a systematic error in subsequent slides. The fourth step is analysis. So the final step to analysis is to find out what is the exposure rate among cases and controls to suspected factor. What is the estimation of disease risk associated with exposure? That is what is meant by odds ratio. So for this, we need to study a typical example of smoking and lung cancer of a case control study. So exposure rates are frequency of exposure. So in this 2x2 contingency table of a case control study of smoking and lung cancer, we have around 35 cases of lung cancer and 82 cases of 82 controls of lung cancer. 82 controls were those who do not have lung cancer. And we are studying the association of smoking and lung cancer, smoking especially those who smoke more than 5 cigarettes per day. So what we need to do is we need to calculate the exposure rates among cases. So the exposure rates among cases is A by A plus C into 100. That is here 33 by 35 into 100. Likewise, what is the exposure rate among controls? Who is smoking in controls? That is 55. And who are having the disease? 55 people are having the disease among the total controls, that is 82. So 55 by 82 into 100 is the exposure rate among the controls. So exposure rate among cases is 94.2% and exposure rate among the controls is 67%. And the statistical resolution what we find is P less than 0.001 means highly significant or very highly significant. So the frequency rate of lung cancer as we have observed in the above 2x2 contingency table was found to be higher among smokers than that of non-smokers. So what we have is 94.2% among smokers and 67% among non-smokers. That is here 94.2% among cases and 67% among controls. So lung cancer is more in cases compared to that of control. And the statistical association what we find between smoking and lung cancer was found to be less than 0.001. But one should remember that a statistical association, that is the p-value, does not imply causation. For this, we need to find out some other factor where we need to understand how far the risk factor is associated with the disease. Statement of p-value is thus inadequate, although common endpoint of case control studies. Now, so what we have studied in analysis is, first we studied about the frequency of disease or frequency of exposure. Second, what we are going to study is estimation of risk. The estimation of disease risk associated with exposure is always done by index known as the relative risk or the risk ratio. Remember, relative risk or risk ratio is one and the same. The other name of relative risk is risk ratio. It is nothing but it is the ratio between the incidence of disease among exposed persons and incidence of disease among unexposed persons or not exposed persons. So it is given by the formula relative risk or risk ratio is incidence of disease among exposed, IE, that is incidence of among non-exposed divided by INE. So here relative risk is calculated in the formula we know in 2x2 contingency table. A, that is incidence of disease among exposed, is A by A plus B. That is incidence of disease among exposed. If A and B are the people who are exposed to smoking, A is getting the disease. So A by A plus B. If C and D and people are those who are not smoking, who is getting the disease? C is getting the disease. C by C plus D. So that is the incidence among non-exposed. So A by A plus B divided by C plus D is the relative risk. But very often, mostly relative risk is not used in a case control study for the simple reason that a typical case control study does not provide incidence rates for which a relative risk can be calculated directly because there is no appropriate denominator or population at risk to calculate these rates. So A by A plus B is A plus B in a case control study is not the denominator or population at risk. So in general, relative risk can be easily determined only from a cohort study. So how you are going, then how are you going to study the association in a case control study? We are going to study the association in a case control study by another indicator or another measurement that is known as odds ratio. Odds ratio or cross product ratio. This can be a short note. Very commonly the examiners ask in the university. So from a case control study, what we get is odds ratio, which is derived, which can be derived, and which is a measure of the strength of the association between the risk factor and the outcome. So odds ratio is closely related to relative risk. So odds ratio, the derivation of odds ratio is based upon three assumptions. The disease investigated must be relatively rare. Otherwise, it's not possible to calculate odds ratio. The cases must be representative of those with the disease, and the controls must be representative of those without the disease. The odds ratio is a cross product of the entries in the table shown in the next slide. So if we again look into a typical case control study, how to calculate odds ratio is A, B, C, D. A are the people, A plus C are the people who are having the disease, B plus D are the controls, A plus C are the cases, B plus D are the controls, and C is the risk, exposed is the risk factor, not exposed is not the risk factor. So odds ratio is calculated by the cross product ratio, that is AD by BC. Odds ratio is also calculated dividing A divided by B divided by C divided by D. So AD by BC, that if you cross multiply, it comes like this. So it is 8.1. So odds ratio, if somebody will ask you what is the definition of an odds ratio, it is the ratio of the odds of a person getting the disease. So among A and B, who is getting the disease? A is getting the disease. It is the ratio of the odds of a person getting the disease who is exposed. So who is exposed? A and B are exposed, and who is getting the disease? A. So it is A by B. To the odds of a person getting the disease who is not exposed. Who is not exposed? C and D are not exposed. And who is getting the disease? C. So C by D. So A by B divided by C by D. So that is exactly the definition of odds ratio. To repeat, odds ratio is the ratio of the odds of a person getting the disease who is exposed to the odds of the person getting the disease who is not exposed. Now we should understand what are bias in case control study. This can be also be a short note in the university examination. Now bias is any systematic error in the determination of the association between the exposure and the disease. So when we calibrate exposure and disease, there can be a systematic error, and this systematic error is called bias. The relative risk estimate may increase or decrease depending upon the result of the bias. So it reflects some type of non-comparability between cases and control groups, and this may result in bias. So the possibility of bias must be considered while evaluating the possible cause and effect relationship, or the risk factor and the disease relationship. So the various types of bias that may arise in epidemiological studies are bias due to confounding. Earlier we have discussed about confounding. So confounding factor is a factor which is associated with the exposure and the disease. So to avoid this bias, we need to do proper matching. Then memory or recall bias. These are bias, usually it occurs in epidemiological investigations, and this is because the cases tend to recall certain factors or events more than the people, those who do not have the disease in question. Selection bias. Selection bias have to be avoided, and this has to be prevented from the very beginning. And this is usually happens when we select controls having only one risk factor, which is not exactly the same type of cases. So what we need to do is we need to select controls in such a way having more than one disease, which may be matched with that of cases, but not having the disease with the cases have. So selection bias, the one way the selection bias can be avoided is to have a proper representative sample of the particular cases and the control. Bergsonian bias has come from the word of Joseph Bergsonian, who has estimated this particular bias, and it is because of the different admission rates to the hospitals. Mostly it is seen that the admission rates to hospitals are not one and the same. They are different for different diseases. As a result, we may not be able to have the perfect incident cases that are required while we select cases for a case control study. Interviewers bias. As an interviewer, the interviewer already knows what is the hypothesis and already knows who the cases are. There is always a tendency for the interviewer to interview thoroughly the cases when compared to that of controls. This can be properly avoided by having a time fixed for interviewing both the cases and controls, so that uniformly both the cases and controls can be interviewed in a specific amount of time or a specific duration. Now, what are the advantages and disadvantages of a case control study? The advantages of a case control study are it is relatively easy to carry out. So the cases and controls are selected. So it is a retrospective case, and it is very easy to assemble cases and controls provided some care is taken into account. It is rapid and inexpensive. So compared to that of cohort studies. So it is inexpensive because the controls cases are already the people who are having the disease in question, and controls are people not having the disease in question. So we don't exactly wait for any exposure to occur. We go back in time and calculate the exposure. It requires comparatively few subjects. It is particularly suitable to investigate rare diseases or diseases of which little is known. There is no risk to subjects because the disease has already occurred, and we are not, in fact, waiting in time or in future to see the effect of the risk factor in the causation of the disease. It allows the study of several different etiological factors. For example, when we are talking about the role of smoking in myocardial infarction, we can also study the role of physical activity, personality characteristics, or personality behavior like alcoholism or exercise, like that, in the causation of myocardial infarction. So we are able to study different etiological factors other than the factor which we are interested in studying in the role of myocardial infarction. Risk factors can be identified. Rational prevention and control programs can be established once the risk factors are identified. There are no attrition problems, as the cases and controls are identified beforehand, and it is mostly due to employment records or from hospitals or by survey registers. There's no chance of any case and control leaving the study at any point of time. So the attrition, like maybe like death, migration, or change of occupation are not exactly seen in this type of case control study. Ethical problems are minimal because we are not trying to follow the risk factor and see the causation of the disease. Already the diseases have occurred, and we are only comparing the controls with that of the cases. So there's no question of having any ethical problems. Now, what are the various disadvantages of a case control study? Problems or biases relies on memory or past records. As I said, there are the cases can recollect certain events in their in their lifestyle or in their previous habits, which may result in some sort of systematic error. Selection of an appropriate control group may be difficult. Many a times, group and pair matching may not exactly happen as we think of. So we cannot measure incidence. Only we can calculate is the relative risk in the form of odds ratio here. It doesn't distinguish between causes and associated factors, because here what we find, sometimes the confounding factors are there which may be directly involved in the causation of disease. As we said about smoking and esophageal cancer, the alcohol can be a risk factor for esophageal cancer or esophageal carcinoma, and alcohol is also associated with smoking. So consumption of alcohol is associated with smoking, because it is seen that a smoker always, sometimes, many a times it has been observed that a smoker also consumes alcohol. It's not suited for the evaluation of therapy or prophylaxis of disease, and it requires better models or better epidemiological study designs to understand correctly for the evaluation of therapy or prophylaxis of a disease. Another major concern is the representativeness of cases and controls. Many times, cases and controls are not exactly selected from a particular pool of homogeneous population. So Many times there may be slight differences as far as the cases are concerned. For example, if you talk about selection of cases like carcinoma breast stage 1, we need to select cases of carcinoma breast stage 1 and not stage 2 or stage 3. Likewise, also control of the particular cancer of a particular stage. So in that process, we should ensure that if you have proper diagnostic and eligibility criteria, then the representativeness of cases and controls is efficiently ensured. So what are the various examples of a case control study? The various examples of the case control study are cigarette smoking and lung cancer. The classical thing what we discussed earlier and also in the 22 contingency table, wherein I explained about the exposure and also the odds ratio. Maternal smoking and congenital malformation is another example. Radiation and leukemia is another example. Oral contraceptives and hepatocellular adenoma, herpes simplex and Bell's palsy, induced abortion and spontaneous abortion, physical activity and coronary death, artificial sweeteners and bladder carcinoma, adenocarcinoma of vagina, the use of oral contraceptives and thromboembolic disease, especially in women, and thalidomide tragedy, wherein the role of thalidomide in the causation of phocomalia among children born to mothers who are given thalidomide as far as their delivery is concerned. So these are the various examples of the case control study. Thank you for your patient hearing. And before I wind up the class, you need to understand that this case control study is often question that is very favorable to examiners, and they come in the university examination time and again. And the 4 important steps which you should understand and remember is selection of cases and control, matching, measurement of exposure, analysis, and interpretation. Thank you for your patient hearing. Thank you.